crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Lady Chatterley's Lover, released May 7th, 1982. It was written by Marc Behm, Just Jaeckin, and Christopher Wicking, based on the novel by D.H. Lawrence, directed by Just Jaeckin, and released by Cannon Films.
Directed by no one else?
Just Jaeckin. That's it. In 1928, the final novel of author D.H. Lawrence, Lady Chatterley's Lover, was published. Altered States director Ken Russell briefly held the rights to adapt the story, but somehow lost them due to obligations to other projects. Though 7 years later, Russell would adapt Lawrence's novel Rainbow, and 12 years later, he got a second chance to adapt this story into the 1993 film entitled simply Lady Chatterley, but based on the same book. With Sylvia Kristel's attachment, rumors began that the film would likely be another softcore pornographic release in the vein of her Emmanuelle films from the same director, but she did her best to clear up that misunderstanding in the press. Ian McShane was the first actor cast to play Mellors, but left the project at his wife's insistence because Kristel was actually an ex-girlfriend of his.
Oh, no.
And she would not have been comfortable with them working together this way.
Oh, I would have liked Ian McShane in here.
Yeah. Oliver Reed was the next offered the part, but he flat out turned it down. Probably because he was uncomfortable accepting a contract from Cannon just yet.
Yeah, this feels like a weird movie for Cannon.
It does.
Like it's not.
It feels weirdly tasteful for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not like a cheesy, like.
I think they were all very proud of
movie.
that about it, though. I think that they wanted to make a prestige piece that was a serious, potentially even an awards contender.
Yeah.
And this is what came together.
I can't think of, maybe there's others. I can't think of a single period piece kind of Cannon film that isn't, got,
that works the way
samurais
this
in it or
does.
something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
McShane actually returned to recommend Nicholas Clay for the part. Kristel was in a relationship at the time with this film's producer, Andre Jaoui, but they separated because he didn't like the haircut she wears in the film's closing scenes. He broke up with her because of her haircut for the movie. It's like, you're the producer. You couldn't have been like, no, she doesn't cut her hair. The film did not fare well in the box office, but more than paid for itself as a staple of the mid to late 80s pay cable broadcasting. The same property seen in the film, Rotham Park, Barnet, Hertfordshire, England, UK, was later utilized by Russell in his 1993 adaptation of the same novel, and later still for Altman's Gosford Park, as the same building. Despite her Dutch accent being fully dubbed over by another actress, Sylvia Kristel considers this film her finest work. So far, I agree. Of everything I've seen of hers, I think that this is probably on the top of that chart.
All two of them.
No, I've seen probably 4 or 5 movies from her, if you count the whole Emmanuelle trilogy, of course. We open on a mansion at sunset. The opening credits play out over the enormous residence, and then we fade to a fox hunt with a dozen British gentlemen in red coats and top hats returning home. First among them, Sir Clifford Chatterley, played by Shane Briant, announces to his wife, the titular Lady Constance Chatterley, that he's won today's contest, and the prize is the first dance with her at the ball tonight. Thank God he won, right?
Yeah, that would be really
super
awkward.
In the corner of the party that night, Sir Clifford is annoyed to have to break up a political conversation led by Anthony Head as a German guest named Anton.
How to ruin an evening, invite a German to a party.
Anton, we're not enemies yet.
But the situation is very serious. Please, Anton, not this evening.
Clifford sends Anton to the dance floor with Lady Constance Chatterley to shut him up. A car pulls up outside and a man in casual dress rushes through the door to deliver important news to the host. It passes through several people on the way to Sir Clifford, and he brings the party to a standstill to deliver the announcement.
My friends, I'm sorry to interrupt the dance, but I'm sure you'll all want to hear the news. For the last 24 minutes, England has been at war with Germany.
Shocked whispers flutter about the room, and Clifford says a toast to England, and then, as a delayed afterthought, a smaller toast to Germany to appease his German guests. Or maybe just this one German guest, I don't know. We cut right to the Chatterleys taking a group photo on the porch just as Sir Clifford is being shipped off to war. Constance tries to join him in the car, but he doesn't want her to see the ship off. She tells him to come home safe. Then we cut to the famously traumatic chaos that was trench warfare of the First World War. We see Clifford bravely commanding his men at the front line. A sudden explosion throws him to the ground, and hours or possibly days later, he's discovered in a puddle of mud, still breathing, and rushed to medical care. We cut back to the Chatterley home, practically wallpapered in enormous oil paintings, to the point that I half expected the staircases to detach from the walls and randomly trade places like some Hogwartsian architecture. The house is eerily quiet. Beside a fireplace, we see Sir Clifford reading The Importance of Being Earnest to Constance. The clock strikes 10:30, and she moves around behind Clifford's chair to roll him off to bed, indicating that this war injury has robbed Sir Clifford of the use of his legs. With the aid of what looks like a wardrobe rack, Clifford pulls himself out of his chair and into bed. She tucks him in and wishes him a good night before retiring to her own bedroom in a whole nother wing of the mansion. In the morning, Constance reads in the newspaper that other local mansions are going up for sale soon as their owners can no longer afford them. Later that day, we see Sir Clifford in a motorized wheelchair at the end of the driveway to greet a guest, Lady Eva. He follows her car up to the house.
This is a pretty cool... I wonder if this was a real thing ever.
I bet it was.
Because it's a very fascinating whole process, like watching him start and stop it. And,
yeah, but it's like a gas engine, like motorcycle almost, but as a wheelchair. That evening, they have dinner with their guest, and then Clifford excuses himself from the table. In private, Lady Eva speaks rather curtly of Clifford's condition and praises Constance for how she's endured it.
Not more than half a man, you might say. Course, it's the right half for a woman like me. He can be so witty and entertaining, but for a young wife, I'm not so sure at all.
We see Constance struggle in her sleep at night, and a nightmare of a horse struggling in dark scares her out of bed. She runs fully out of the house to a tree in the yard, and then we cut to Clifford waking up. So either he just heard her out there, or the whole of what we've seen was his dream just now. I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, she ran outside in such a, like, everything's so kind of foggy.
Like almost slow motion dream state.
Yeah, and so I was like, is this still part of the dream?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even sure the filmmakers are totally sure. Clifford takes her to a bench in the yard that day for an important conversation. He expresses his guilt for how much he needs from her and how little he provides.
That's probably what the dream was, though. Like it's
so it was just him picturing her leaving?
Picturing her trying to break free and of the constraints that
maybe that's
she's
what it
under.
was then.
Yeah.
He can't stand the thought of denying her access to life's pleasures. He offers his express permission for her to make love with any other man she chooses so that she's never overtaken with resentment for her situation. She barely responds except to say that she loves him, and they're interrupted suddenly by a dog and its owner, a local hunter, or so I thought. Guess this is a farmer that works for them. He apologizes for the intrusion. Clifford asks the man for a push back to the mansion, and we never get a good look at his face in the scene. That night, Constance admits to some concern regarding their finances. She suggests opening the mine they own the rights to, but Clifford says it isn't time for that yet. He's stricken by some kind of panic attack migraine, and she crosses the room to massage it out of his head somehow. The next day, he asks her to play him a song, and before she can start it on the piano, Clifford suffers another attack, and a doctor is summoned, but in its place, a nurse, Mrs. Bolton, arrives. While the nurse looks after Clifford, he suggests Constance head down the road to the Mellors farm to see how well their pheasants are laying eggs this year. Constance wanders down on foot, and when she comes within 40 feet of the farm, she spots Mr. Mellors, played by Nicholas Clay, fully nude, bathing in the yard with just a bucket and a washcloth. This dude is built like a sexy, hairless Coco the gorilla, just 100% muscle. She watches silently from the tree line until she grips a branch too tightly in her hand, and the snapping of twigs calls his attention in her direction. She ducks away, but watches a bit longer, licking her lips as the man pumps more water into his bucket before turning to walk back home.
I feel like this is like the moment that I'm like, oh, this is 100% made by men.
Yeah.
Like this is not. This had no input from what women want.
This is definitely the male gaze, for sure. Yeah, watching this guy wash himself.
Yeah, because he spends an enormous amount of time working the grundle. And
but it was so clean, though.
It's like I think one swipe of the hand is enough.
It was just itchy. That's the monster from that old story, right?
Yeah.
Beowulf kills the Grundle.
Or is it the Grumble from All Real Monsters?
All Real Monsters. At the mansion, we find Nurse Ivy Bolton giving Clifford a vigorous back massage. When Constance returns, Clifford asks what she learned, but she claims she couldn't find the man.
Oh, Connie, I can't ask you to do the simplest thing.
Nurse Bolton offers Constance some kind of curative beverage, and Clifford announces Bolton will be staying with them for the night. When the couple are left alone that night, Clifford shares with Constance a passage from the book he's reading, The Adventures of Haji Baba, which tells the story of a young Persian man traveling in England and disgusted by the faces of the English women he found there. Clifford supposes he might have been intensely aroused if they'd worn burqas. Constance compares his point to the way some ancient marble statues look better without their heads. After tucking Clifford in, Constance wanders to her room alone, stroking her face and undressing before a full-length mirror to appreciate her own form. She thinks back to her encounter at the farm today while draping herself in a cloak of sheer fabric. She sees Mr. Mellors again, naked outside the cabin, and gropes at her own chest before moving to the bed. She continues exploring herself there, and we see little flashes of the man bathing himself again, but Constance is no longer watching from the trees. She's there beside him, swiping her hands over his skin as he scrubs himself down. We see her climax in the empty bedroom to the fantasy, and the next morning, Constance sleeps in a bit and finds Clifford and Nurse Bolton in the middle of a chess game in the morning. Clifford once again entrusts Constance with the mission of checking with the farmer about this year's crop of pheasant eggs. Clifford seems quite engaged in the chess game, and Nurse Bolton seems a worthy opponent. Constance takes a bite this time, and Mr. Mellors tells her the eggs have already been set, and he expects even more than the previous year. She asks to see for herself and heads inside. She informs the man that she intends to check on the birds often and inquires about an extra key to the hut, and Mr. Mellors is weirdly reluctant to comply with her request. It seems like he's simply annoyed at having to share his comfortable workspace with his boss's wife.
Only why doesn't Sir Clifford build a little summer house for you?
No, I want to come here and watch the pheasants hatch.
He claims that the presence of a stranger in the hut might negatively affect their output this year. Eventually, she gives up and tells him to forget about the key and rides her bike away. Back at home, she shares the good news about this year's eggs. Clifford is doing an oil painting on the patio and informs Constance that Nurse Bolton will be staying for a bit longer because she thinks it will do Constance some good to have a bit of freedom.
I feel like this is a weird thing. Like, she came on an emergency call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't she just have a normal job as a nurse to tend to people that she should be going back to?
I'm sure they have enough money to keep her employed full time here.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like she would have other obligations, and she's just going to live here now.
I think she's talking him into letting her work more and more at the house because she's trying to give Constance freedoms.
And she will come and go from the house a couple of times.
Yeah.
So I imagine
I think just to shop or to pick up medicines and stuff like that. Alone together, Bolton asks if Constance found Mr. Mellors today.
I certainly did. He's the most insolent man I've ever talked to.
He was a defiant little demon, even when he was a lad.
You know him, then?
Much as anyone knows anyone who prefers to keep his own company. I used to think he had a heart, if anybody could get there.
Oh, a heart.
With most women, he just gets their backs up, like he has with you.
It's starting to sound like sending Constance to the pheasant hut was Bolton's idea and a deliberate attempt to seduce her with that fine hunk of man meat down the road. On a stroll together, Constance asks about Clifford's offer to seek physical love outside their marriage and asks if the offer extended to a potential pregnancy. He seems caught off guard at first, but ultimately he grants her permission to breed, asking only that they refer to the child as the product of Constance and the Holy Ghost, at least between them. We cut to a church where Constance seems to have run her spoken contract with Clifford by the local priest for the religious implications, but the man hesitates to condone this arrangement.
Yeah, I don't know what she was expecting.
That was pointless, yeah.
And it was like,
is it okay if I fuck outside of my marriage, even though those promises I made? No, you can't do that. That's bad.
I don't feel like the priest said that, though. He's like, kind of up to you.
Yeah, but still, it's like, why did you even bother going to this guy?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's totally fine. What do you think I've been doing this whole time?
I also have a key to the pheasant hut.
Back at home, Clifford is painting again, this time with Mrs. Bolton, or Mrs. B as he's come to call her, as his model. That night, Clifford is playing pool with Mrs. B and asks Constance what she was doing at the church today.
What on earth for?
I thought I'd book an appointment with the Holy Ghost.
Are you fucking the priest? That's what I assumed he would think. The next morning, in a thick pre-dawn fog, Mellors comes to the house with the spare key she requested. He claims it was no trouble at all. I don't know why the change of heart here, unless Bolton literally reached out to him and was like, bring the fucking key tomorrow. I'll tell her where you are in the yard. By the time she gets back in from her morning walk, Clifford is already up and about getting a shave from Mrs. B. Previously, these duties were Constance's alone, but Mrs. B is taking them on one by one. Back at the hut later, Constance sits with a book in the yard and reads while Mr. Mellors works. Getting a ride back to the mansion from shopping, Mrs. B's carriage driver asks who this huge property will be left to if Sir Clifford is incapable of fathering an heir, but she assures the man that Sir Clifford gets stronger every day and children are not yet out of the question. Crossing paths with Constance outside, she reminds the woman to obey the demands of her heart and not to fear any social consequence. Constance returns to the hut where the pheasants have hatched. She's excited to hold one, but the first one seems less than excited to see her.
Oh, they don't like me.
Oh, then we'll find one that does.
And the comment strikes too close to home, with the first chick representing the disinterested Clifford and Mr. Mellors representing Mrs. B, recommending seeking someone new. Constance crosses the room to cry, and Mr. Mellors tries to comfort her. When his hand touches her shoulder, it sends a shockwave through her body, and she collapses sobbing in his arms. They stare into each other's eyes for just a moment, and soon the potent sexual tension erupts, and their mouths are all over each other. He lays her down on a fur rug beside the fireplace and tears away at her many layers of clothes before making love to her on the floor. They continue rocking together, entangled, until they both pass out. Constance wakes with a startle, seemingly hours later, and races home to avoid suspicion. Clifford is in the yard painting, facing away from her, but Mrs. B spots her coming and can possibly tell from the state of her clothes what's just happened. Later, around the pool table again, the subject of Mrs. B's deceased husband arises. Evidently she was just 24 when he passed, and Clifford jokes that Constance was the same age when she lost her husband.
I miss him, God knows, but I'll never forget him. I believe he'd never have left me, and I'll never leave him.
A lesson to us all, Con.
The first indication of a retaliatory resentment from Clifford, and Mrs. B and Constance both seem equally shocked by it. Later that night, Mrs. B and Clifford play chess over his bed, and we cut back to the pheasant hut where Mr. Mellors lights a candle at night and sits thinking for a while. He walks to the mansion in the early morning. Inside, we see Clifford has kept Mrs. B up all night with the game so he could catch a glimpse of the man his wife sneaks off with before dawn each day.
Why would he think to do that?
Because he knows what she's doing.
I guess I just think it'd be weird to assume that wherever she goes, there's a man waiting in your lawn in the morning.
Well, I think that was the chivalrous thing to do, is to pick her up in person for some reason. But, yeah, I mean, he wasn't wrong. He excuses Bolton and asks her to open the curtains on her way out. She does as she's told and spots Mellors outside, but when he sees her, the man retreats back into the fog. Later that day, Constance finds men carrying many of their possessions up to the attic on Sir Clifford's instructions. When she checks his home office, she finds Clifford conducting actual business for the first time since his injury. A pair of fellow businessmen stand out of respect when she enters, and he quickly introduces her before curtly requesting privacy to work with these men. She wanders out to the yard and sits on the stone bench in the garden where she's visited by Mr. Mellors. She seems to ignore his words at first, and he interprets her coldness as a rejection of his social standing, but she denies this accusation. He drags her hand in hand back to a clearing in the woods, out of sight of the mansion, and they kiss here out in the open. They fumble with each other's clothes, a little gentler this time to allow for unsuspicious redressing, and he makes love to her balanced against a low tree branch. Back at the mansion that afternoon, we see Clifford and Nurse Bolton doing some intense exercises. She again assures him that he's making visible progress. We cut back to Constance and Mellors back at the pheasant hut, naked on the floor together. When she gets home, Constance finds a dinner for one prepared because Clifford is busy in the library and Mrs. Bolton is resting. As reading material with her meal, Constance is brought a recent issue of a magazine with what looks like an entire spread devoted to their palatial home, including photographs of their rooms within, unless I'm misunderstanding a fantasy sequence. Because she's looking at it and then she sees like the pictures being taken like it's actually her house. So at first I was like, oh, they did like some kind of a profile on their property. But then I was like, maybe she's just reading a fashion magazine and envisioning it as her own life. I don't know what this part means.
I don't know what that means, though.
Yeah, I don't know what any of this part means. She transitions right into a second, less sophisticated fantasy, living in a small one-bedroom shack with Mr. Mellors, playing the piano for her hulked-out husband while he prepares animal flesh for supper with his bare hands. Clifford finds her smiling here at the table and asks if she's truly happy. He thinks it might have been better for them both if they'd never pulled him from the muck of the battlefield.
I don't want you to die. But it is cruel to make me responsible for your living.
Which seems like kind of a harsh way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he is trying to say, like, you know, you're the only thing that keeps me alive.
Right. And she's saying, like, hey, look,
fair.
You're cool and all. I like you, but don't live for me. Like, you don't have to live just for me. Like, you don't have to do that.
I don't think that. I think the point is that's too much to put on her.
Right, because then she's like, should I feel guilty for your existence now?
Yeah, it's her responsibility to, like... give him something worth living for.
Yeah. She tries to get him to admit to a will to live of his own, and he apologizes for the tone he just took.
Don't. For my selfish sake, I'm not worthy of you.
Do you guys recall the last time we saw a British period piece where a man told a woman he wasn't worthy of her?
My Brilliant Career?
No.
That was Australian, wasn't it?
Actually, Sylvia Kristel was up for the role in this other movie, too. Or at least that's what some of the trivia said.
Time After Time. Not Time.
No, it's not a time one.
Somewhere in Time was what you were thinking.
Somewhere in
of.
Time was the one I was thinking of. Thank you.
But there are scenes in the present and scenes in the past in it. But it's not a time travel movie.
I think I got it, but I'm not going to remember the name of it. Like at the end in the attic with the acting and the...
Mm-hmm.
It was the French lieutenant's wife, Glover, friend, mistress. French lieutenant's woman.
There you go. That's it. The French lieutenant's woman. Because he doesn't want to tell his fiancée that he's dating another woman, so he's like...
I have, after many hours of the deepest and the most painful consideration, come to the conclusion that I am not worthy of you.
Not worthy
I'm
of
totally unworthy.
Oh my gosh. So unworthy. You would not believe how unworthy I am of you. The next day, Constance is terrified to find Mr. Mellors standing in her entry hall, but she quickly learns he's here to report that he's caught poachers hunting on Clifford's land. He has them apprehended now on the porch. When she sees these older men, Constance's first instinct is to take pity on these less fortunate souls who might conceivably have hunted here by mistake, but Clifford orders Mr. Mellors to prosecute the pair. Constance tries to talk him out of that option.
They're only poaching because they're hungry. If the
Her
mine...
ladyship is right. We won't prosecute. Let them go. After you've thrashed them.
Clifford!
And after a bit of hesitation, Mr. Mellors uses his glistening biceps to pummel the older men to within an inch of their lives. One of them, it looks like he actually dies from this punch.
So the guy's reactions, like the poacher's reactions are like, we won't prosecute. They're all like, oh, okay, good. It's like, but you're going to have to thrash them. And they act like that's worse. It's just like, I don't know.
Well, what if the punishment was thrashing and they're already caught dead to rights? Then it's like, oh, great, I have to go through a trial and then get thrashed. How don't you just thrash me right now?
Well, they would probably go to prison, which I feel like if I broke into somebody's house to steal their stuff and they caught me and they said, you can either go to prison or I'm going to beat you up.
If I had to choose between being 70 and get punched in the chest by Mr. Mellors or going to prison, I'd probably be like, I'll take some bread and a blanket. That'll be fine. Later, we see Mr. Mellors walking around the far end of the property doing a bit of pheasant hunting. He delivers a bouquet of dead birds to the mansion staff while Clifford sits in the yard firing on clay pigeons. When Mellors returns to the hut hours later, it's pouring rain, and he clearly left Constance waiting here outside in it. He tries to make a point about how he's expected to appear at her every beck and call, but ultimately apologizes, understanding they're both in a difficult position. Back at the mansion, Clifford is rocking sit-ups, and Mrs. B makes a confession.
To be honest, when we started, I thought it was hopeless.
Back in the hut, Constance and Mellors have just made love again. He worries aloud she's liable to catch pregnant if they keep this up.
Sorry.
Is that better or worse? Catch pregnant. She's likely to develop a growth in her uterus if they keep this up.
It's also put in such a way as like, what happens if you have a baby? It's like, what do you mean me? We're both doing this.
Yeah. Well, if I have one, we need to call a lot of people.
You could pull out
a baby. What does that mean? How will she explain it to Clifford? She vaguely references an agreement they've made, and at first Mellors is terrified that Clifford knows what they're up to. She explains that Clifford is not against raising a son. Mellors seems to assume that if they were to conceive a child, she would confess their relationship to Clifford and leave him.
If he ever suspects about you, I'll have to go right away somewhere.
What for?
I couldn't live without you. But I couldn't live with him if he knew about you.
He walks her halfway back to her home and proposes that at least once they could make love at his home cottage at night instead of in a pheasant hut midday.
I thought this was his home. I thought he lived here.
No, he works here.
It'd be really weird, like, first time
Give
she
me a
comes out
key
to
to
give me a
your
key to your
house.
house.
I want to be able to walk in whenever I fucking feel like it.
He's like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not doing that.
Well, why would he say no though? Because he already takes baths outside.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like he was washing up outside. It was like, does he live here? He must live here.
No, I do that at my work too.
Yeah.
Right out in front of the building.
Trams riding by are like, what the hell?
Hi everybody. On your left. Oh, shit. On your right. Look to your right.
Is that Mel
This is
Gibson?
a wall. The other side of this wall is Mario Land. Don't look to your left. Holy shit. Security. She sneaks away to get back inside before Clifford knows she's been gone. She arrives to a set dinner table, and Mrs. B suggests Clifford must be on his way shortly. She stops Constance to fish something out of her hair that might give away where she spent the afternoon. The women look at each other knowingly. Constance finds Clifford working on plans for his mine in his library. She invites him back to dinner while he explains that in the absence of human offspring or competent paintings, he will treat his business as his child and live on through it. He has extensive plans to modernize his mining operations, and it will call for sacrifices from them. She tucks him in again that night, and as she slips away to her own bed, she doesn't even notice the tighter-than-usual grip on her hands as she pulls back. The next day, she's joyously reunited with Mellors at the hut. During today's lovemaking, Constance admits to having watched him bathing that first time she came to visit. He still seems to distrust her intentions and suspects he's being used for sex.
But you don't take me serious, do you? What am I to you? What do your sorts say? A fucker.
No, lover. You are my lover.
They get back to it, and he reiterates his belief that if she weren't trapped this way, she'd have nothing to do with him. He feels beneath her, like she looks down on him. He admits how rejected and worthless he feels on the mornings that she doesn't show up. He assures her that all she wants from him is sex, and as he continues thrusting away at her, intentionally or otherwise, she finally agrees to the statement. When they're done and redressed, she sets the record straight. Her feelings for him are real, and she needs the same reassurance as he does. She gets a bit condescending here, suggesting that if Clifford understands that she needs access to a lover, then Mellors should understand her equal need for Clifford. Unless she just needs one man for sex and one for money, then her argument doesn't really hold water. This man is offering love and sex, but she claims to need the man who provides only love despite his consistent coldness with her. It's clear Mellors is tiring of their arrangement and toying with the idea of pulling back the curtain himself. Constance thinks maybe these visits should be over. Mellors veers the opposite direction, begging now for a promise that they'll keep seeing each other forever. She promises never to break things off.
Then let's make it legal.
I don't think this is legal. I don't think this is how the law works.
It's binding. This is a legally binding tree.
As a symbol of their agreement, he drags her to a tree in the woods and instructs her to hammer a nail into the bark as a symbol of her eternal commitment to him. He asks again for an overnight visit, and she promises one soon. When she arrives home that night, Clifford watches her cross the yard to the porch, claiming he just came out to see the sunset. Constance, Clifford, and Bolton share an awkwardly quiet dinner together, and the next day, Clifford announces an intention to visit Mr. Mellors on his own to see if the chicks have hatched. Constance has to open the gate outside the hut for his motorized chair, and when he races through it, Mr. Mellors appears from the side to ask why she brought Clifford along. Clifford's wheels are soon stuck in a mud puddle in the path, and he calls to Constance for help. She tries to shove him out of the mud, but his tires completely drench her clothes. Clifford calls for assistance from Mellors, who offers to push, but instead, Clifford starts the engine again with the man behind him, seemingly intentionally splashing Mellors with the same mud. Mellors can barely budge the chair even after clearing the puddle, and Constance notices that her husband is tightly gripping the brake, making the job impossible, presumably with an intention of letting go to send Mellors face first into the mud. When Clifford has finally burned out the gears of the chair, he pops it in neutral and requests a push home. He recites a sentence in French to Constance, which translates as, "It's a shame to be at the mercy of anyone." I'm assuming this is because he wanted to tell her something and he didn't want this guy to hear it. When they reach the house, Mrs. Bolton offers to assist in bringing Clifford inside, but Clifford volunteers Mr. Mellors for the job. Having successfully wasted their entire day together, Clifford retires to bed as the lights are being put out throughout the mansion. We see Mellors in his finest suit camped out in the yard that night, waiting for Constance. She collects a flashlight from her room and heads out to join him at the edge of the property line. He escorts her home to his cottage where he has flowers waiting for her. Constance finds a framed photo of Mrs. Mellors, but Mr. doesn't appreciate the distraction and literally tosses the photo of his wife into the fire.
Well, we didn't come here to talk about her.
Oh.
It's like, why did you keep it then?
He explains vaguely that the woman is no longer his wife, so either they've separated or she died. Do we ever get a clarification?
I mean, he says she left, so I don't think she's...
This mortal coil, or...?
No, that she left him. She ran away, or she... Yeah, and he doesn't give any further explanation, but she seems like she abandoned him.
She's definitely under these floorboards. The two undress and begin making out, and as soon as they fall to the bed together, we cut to Clifford waking with a startle in his own bed. He manages to drag himself out into his chair. He rolls down the hall, and at the bottom of a staircase, he calls up toward Constance's room, but she doesn't respond. Fearing the second worst, he begins crawling up the stair rail to another chair on the next floor up. All of this is intercut back and forth with Constance and Mellors making love in his cottage. When Clifford finally kicks into Constance's room, at first he sees her lying in the bed, but after a second we see the bed again and it is in fact empty. I don't know why they did this. It seems like it would have made more sense the other way if he kicked in expecting her to not be there and she's not there at first and then it's like, oh, but she is there. Oh, I just missed her or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it seems weird to see her the first time when it seems like he already suspects she's not there.
Right.
He stares long and hard at the empty bed before we cut back to Mellors' cottage. Mellors sits up and finds Constance is gone. He rushes to the window and sees her dancing in the rain outside and smiles at her spontaneity. He rushes out to her with a comforter from the bed. She refers to herself as his wife in the woods, and he carries her back inside. Lying naked together in bed, he decorates her with the petals of the flowers he surprised her with. The next morning, she awakens in his arms and assumes they have all the time in the world to get back to the house. But now, we see Clifford sitting on the porch waiting for her. I get that it's chivalrous or whatever to walk a girl home, but why take the risk of walking her all the way to within sight of the door of where her husband lives? Seems like you're both putting yourselves in unnecessary danger that way. She hugs him goodbye and promises another night together someday. When she gets to the mansion, she finds Clifford waiting for her and sees the secret is out. She reminds him he gave her permission, but he's mostly embarrassed to find she's chosen a man of such low standing. Any child born of this affair couldn't possibly meet with his standards for offspring.
I guess what did he kind of expect? Because, I mean, I know he suspected him earlier than this moment.
Yeah, but was she supposed to invite other nobles to the house?
Yeah, it's not like somebody's driving her into town every day to go to the nearest, wealthy aristocrat that will have her.
Yeah, there's so many penises within walking distance.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them belong to pheasants.
Yeah, I don't think you wanted half poacher kids. Wouldn't you rather have the guy punching them?
But that damned Oliver Mellors.
Oliver, is it?
You never even asked his name.
Some kind of joke in there about Oliver clothes off.
Ah, that's good. Clifford informs her that he's already arranged a brief separation, and her sister is expecting her. Just before Constance is driven away, Nurse Bolton asks a small favor, that she inform Mellors of her travels to avoid confusing him, and also as a heads up for whatever Clifford might have planned for this man.
Like murder.
Right, that's what I assumed. But we never see her talk to him, so I didn't know if she kept this promise or not.
Yeah, because all throughout the movie, Bolton seems to have... I definitely feel she has ulterior motive, but I can never tell if she is intentionally sabotaging her throughout.
No, I think she is a friend to her, but I also did get the impression on my first watch that she was making moves on Clifford.
That's how I felt about it.
Yeah.
She just seemed too eager to do all this stuff for him.
But I didn't feel like it was so treacherous. I think it was like, I'm a better fit for him. I'm going to help you get out of here, and I'll just take over this thing.
But she's like older.
Right, but her husband was probably that much older than her, and he died when she was 24. Constance is sent first by train to London and then by ship to France to meet with her sister. Her sister takes her out to meet new men, but Constance has no interest. One day she receives a letter from home, and without even opening the envelope, she tears it to shreds and tosses it in the ocean.
I feel like in this day and age, when that is your only form of communication, you really have no concept of what might be in this letter.
Yeah.
I would probably read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your husband has passed.
Right. Come home. You're free to love anyone you want.
Your husband struck gold in the coal mine, and also he died that day. When her sister bugs her again for being such a bore here, Constance announces she's pregnant, and it's time for her to return home to England.
What was the point of all this? Like,
I think it was just like, I'm punishing you for what you did, and I'm going to take care of things, and you can come back when I fix it all.
But we have two scenes. We have her with a bunch of guys who I guess later in the credits are described as gigolos, which I think is fun.
Yeah.
And then the scene at the beach where she says, I want to go home. It's like, okay.
I mean, it might as well have been her waking up the next day and finding out the guy was fired. It doesn't really add anything that she's been gone for so long.
Yeah, and I assume that she'd only been gone for maybe a week or two.
Yeah.
But it seems like it must have been
like
several
6 months.
Yeah.
It's 2 months when she gets back that she says how long she's been pregnant.
Yeah. Upon her arrival, she's shocked to find Clifford standing upright on the porch, and with the help of a pair of crutches, he laboriously makes his way down the steps to her. When he nearly falls, she catches him, and they head inside together.
I thought it was strange that there were, like, I guess it's because they're old crutches, but even in those days that you wouldn't put some kind of grip at the bottom of the crutch.
Yeah, like a tennis ball.
Well, I mean, or anything. Like, it was just wood against stone. That's going to not hold up.
Yeah, they definitely had tennis balls at the time, though.
Yeah, because of real tennis.
Yeah, which was way cooler than regular tennis.
Real tennis looked
walls
awesome.
And shit.
Oh.
Remember?
You could bank it off walls.
That's in The French Lieutenant's Woman. There's so many different points in this movie that I thought they were just going to murder this. They were just going to murder this guy. Like, the first time when he gets stuck in the mud, I was like, oh, because of the mud from the war. And he was like face deep in the mud, and then they pulled him out, but now they're going to let him die in the mud this time. And it didn't happen. And then this moment where he's like starting to work his way down the steps, and I was like, I was just waiting for Bolton to just go, whoops, like just shove him down the steps so that he dies in front of her.
And the scene where he's skeet shooting and Mellors is hunting pheasants, and
right?
And she's out on a boat, and she hears like the dueling gunshots.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, is like just one of these going to be
accident.
one of these is just going to be the last shot.
But I like the symbolism there too of like, oh, look at all these like pheasants that I bagged, and this other guy's shooting blanks in the yard because he can't do anything for you. He's not providing unless you want to eat clay shards. I don't think you do. You're not very good. When he nearly falls, Constance catches him and they head inside together. He tells her the more impressive feat was descending into their mine himself.
What? I wrote you about it. Did you get my letters? I wrote you about everything.
We jump forward again, however long Constance was willing to wait before visiting Oliver, and finds him chopping wood outside the hut. But when she calls his name, it's not Oliver. It's a different guy.
Oh, he don't work here no more.
She races home and asks what happened to Mellors, and Clifford assures her that he told her everything in his letters. She finally admits to never having read them. Clifford insists that he had to dismiss the man before he got Constance pregnant and ruin the Chatterley name to the public. She finds Mellors where he ended up, working in Clifford's now operational coal mine. He is not interested in picking up where they left off, and is instead saving up to move overseas to Canada. She promises to leave Clifford and claims enough income for Mellors to run his own farm. He seems uncomfortable to be provided for by a wife, but eventually accepts that there's really no downside to that. We cut back to the house where Clifford reads a book in a chair and asks Mrs. B to close the curtains for him, and we fade to black for the credits to roll. The end. It wraps up a little too quick there at the end.
Yeah, I was like, my note is like, oh, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, well, what are they going to do? Like, what is she getting money from a divorce?
Yes.
Is she previously wealthy?
I think she's getting money from whatever this deal is separating with him. I think maybe she's getting an allowance in exchange for not saying that this wedding was broken up by her infidelity. But yeah, I feel like not that they could really veer too far from how the story ends, but that it's just like, oh, guess what? I divorced him. All our problems are solved. I could have done this at the beginning of the story. Just left him and then got a bunch of money for that. And now we can go wherever we want. Like the second she knew she was pregnant, she could have done this that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess she needed to make the decision that she was going to officially propose to him that they share their lives together. But at the beginning of the scene, it wasn't clear to me that they had separated yet until she was like, we could do whatever we wanted. I have money. I can pay for a farm for you to run. I was like, wait, are they separated now then? Is that what she's implying? Because she never says that directly.
There's no real big moment of the movie where the three of them kind of have it out,
right.
Or
the closest thing is the trying to shove the chair through the mud.
I mean, I kind of so I just feel like the movie just is all second act and there's no real third act. It's just a bit of a denouement.
Yeah. The end.
I still thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it's not terrible. For a Golden Globus thing, I thought the production value was, it looked like a standard period piece. It didn't nothing was like glaringly incorrect about it. Yeah. Although the flashlight did look unexpectedly modern.
Well, and that confused me because the scene before that, Clifford is shutting off an electric light, and I took note of it. I was like, oh, yeah, electric lights. But then she's turning off a gas light. Or kerosene or some kind of light.
She isn't. I'm gaslighting you, get it?
Oh, all right. Well,
that works.
In her room.
Yeah.
And then she turns on the flashlight. I was like, wait, I got very confused about that whole set of things.
And then she checks her iPhone and turns off notifications real quick.
Right. And then, gets on her horse.
Her holographic horse. We have to account for the future, too. But yeah, it's fine. I really do think that Sylvia Kristel is right. This is her best work because she seemed totally competent and comfortable in the role. I feel like, all applause to the Golden Globus and Cannon people for not pushing for as like a bunch of unnecessary sexual stuff in here, because it felt surprisingly tasteful nudity from these guys, from other things that we've seen from them.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think, like I said before, that they cared a lot about this movie and they actually wanted people to be taking them seriously. I think this was something they saw as a path to doing regular prestige films. And it didn't necessarily work out for them that they moved down that path. They kind of stayed a lower tier place, but I give them kudos for what they've accomplished here. And I would say a thumbs up probably for this one.
Yeah, it's a thumbs up. I think everything is very competently done. I have no issues with the film. I liked it.
Yeah.
It's a thumbs up, but I don't know. I don't think I would ever revisit this film. I agree. It was not poorly made.
Yeah.
That seems mean. It was well made. But
and we got to see Lancelot's Lancelot.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
It's like this guy loved being nude in the 80s. But I don't know. Like these types of dramas don't really do it for me.
Sure. What are we thinking Letterboxd for this?
So I have it at 18 out of 70. It is below The Chosen and above The Border.
18, you said?
Sorry.
Wow. No, I just wasn't sure if I misheard you.
We've watched a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this film was well made. Like,
No,
there's literally nothing wrong with it. Like, it could be better. Like, it wasn't the most amazing story, but there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just surprised.
I have it at 34, which puts it below Death Valley, but above Pandemonium.
I have it in 48, which is just under personal best and just above Tag the Assassination Game. Our writer-director here was just Jaeckin. He had previously directed Sylvia Kristel in the first Emmanuel film in 1974. After this, he directs music videos for Elton John and Cheap Trick. Writing credit for Marc Behm, previously wrote the screenplays for The Return of Dr. Mabuse, Charade, the Beatles movie Help, and he's back this season writing X-Ray. Another writing credit for Christopher Wicking, who previously wrote Murders in the Rue Morgue, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, and To the Devil a Daughter. The novelist here was D.H. Lawrence. Many of his novels have been adapted multiple times to the screen, including Lady Chatterley's Lover in 55, 77, 81/2, 85, 89, 95, 06, 2 versions in 2022, Sons and Lovers in 60 and 3 subsequent TV movies, Women in Love in 69 and 3 TV movies, Rainbow in 89 and a couple more TV movies. Last season, we somehow missed Lawrence adaptation Priest of Love, so we'll have to catch that with a minisode eventually. The composer here was Richard Harvey. This was his first composer credit. He later scores The House of Long Shadows, Luther, House of Long Shadows Revisited, and the 2015 Little Prince. The other composer was Stanley Myers, with credits back to the early 60s. Bigger titles like X, Y, and Z, current Patreon contender The Wilby Conspiracy, The Greek Tycoon, The Deer Hunter, and so far on the show Watcher in the Woods. He also scores 1986's Singing Detective, The Witches, and supposedly Hans Zimmer worked together with these co-composers in some capacity but receives no credit. Cinematographer Robert Frey, or Frays, previously served as DP on Emmanuel 2, and after this, 7 Years in Tibet, Enemy at the Gates, Luther, The Notebook, Hotel Rwanda, Alpha Dog, and The Other Woman. The editor was Eunice Mountjoy. Not many other editing credits I recognize, but assistant editing credits on Lawrence of Arabia, The Macintosh Man, and The Man Who Would Be King. Sylvia Kristel played Lady Constance Chatterley. Before this, she was Emmanuel in Emmanuel's 1, 2, and 3, The Fifth Musketeer, and Concord Airport 79. We've seen her now in The Nude Bomb and Private Lessons. Later, she shows up in Private School, Emmanuel 4 as a different character, Mata Hari. She also returns to the Emmanuel series for a set of TV movies and a 7th film installment.
I really was going to hope you were going to say Emmanuel in Space.
No, she's not in that one. Shane Briant played Sir Clifford Chatterley. Before this, he was Paul Durward in Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, Simon Helder in Sherlock Holmes vs. Frankenstein and Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. We saw him last as Drogo in Hawk the Slayer. Nicholas Clay played Oliver Mellors. Before this, he was Charles Darwin in The Darwin Adventure, Henry Clerval in Terror of Frankenstein, Lieutenant Raw in Zulu Dawn, and so far on the show as Lancelot in Excalibur, and Patrick Redfern in Evil Under the Sun. He's back this season for Love Spell, and later Sleeping Beauty and Lionheart in 87. Anne Mitchell played Ivy Bolton. She previously showed up in Murder by Decree, but she's probably best known as Jane and Cora Cross from 352 episodes of EastEnders. Elizabeth Spriggs played Lady Eva. She might actually be best known as Fat Lady in the painting in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone from the moving staircase sequences that I joked about earlier. Peter Bennett played Field. He previously shows up in Quatermass in the Pit. Anthony Head played Anton. After this, he appeared on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, but he's definitely best known for his 122 appearances as Rupert Giles on Buffy the Vampire Slayer's TV series.
I just made the connection that he also is Rupert on Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection either until I was doing my notes. I was like, oh, is that on purpose? Later, he's Benedict in Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, Uther Pendragon in 43 episodes of a 2007 Merlin TV series. He takes over the role of Chiron from Pierce Brosnan in Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters. More recently, he's played the dastardly Rupert Mannion, ex-husband of Hannah Waddington's Rebecca Welton on Apple's Ted Lasso. Frank Morey played the priest. He shows up previously in the 79 Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy miniseries, and his last IMDb credit is for playing Terrence in Love Actually. Bessie Love played Flora. She was born in 1898 with acting credits back to 1915. She's in the Broadway Melody. She's a baccarat player in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. We've seen her already in Ragtime and Reds, and she's back next season as Lilybell in The Hunger. John Tynan played Roberts. IMDb lists him uncredited as Bunker Control Room Operator in Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi. Michael Ryan played Gigolo. We've seen him so far as a waiter in The Long Good Friday, and he's in Superman 4. He's Tom Rogan in Stephen King's 1990 It miniseries, and he was Ray Rigel in the MacGyver episode about aliens. Mike Coliano played another gigolo. We've seen him in Lion of the Desert. I think that's everything for Lady Chatterley's Lover. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between Cooley High, Michael Schultz coming-of-age comedy drama about the lives of a group of high school friends in mid-60s Chicago thrown into chaos by unexpected tragedy. It stars Glynn Turman, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, Garrett Morris, and Cynthia Davis. Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, Michael Anderson's feature film adaptation of pulp novel hero Doc Savage, who teams up with the Fabulous Five to battle the evil Captain Seize and the Green Death for the reward of a pool of molten gold. It stars Ron Ely as Savage, Paul Gleason, William Lucking, and Paul Wexler. Jaws, Steven Spielberg's blockbuster thriller about a series of shark attacks in the town of Amity, the mayor's efforts to downplay the threat, and the team of men assembled to hunt the beast down. It stars Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, and Murray Hamilton. Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, a.k.a. Do Not Profane the Sleep of the Dead, a.k.a. The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue. Jorge Grau's Spanish-Italian co-production about a pair of suspects wrongfully pursued by police for killings actually perpetrated by zombies. Edgar Wright has cited another of its alt titles, Don't Open the Window, as the main inspiration for his Grindhouse trailer Don't. It stars Christina Galbeau, Ray Lovelock, and Arthur Kennedy. Love and Death, Woody Allen's Russian-lit satire about a predictably neurotic soldier and his cousin teaming up to assassinate Napoleon. It stars Woody Allen and Diane Keaton. Nashville, Robert Altman's musical comedy drama about an assortment of country and gospel musicians performing in advance of a major political convention. It stars everybody. Keith Carradine, Karen Black, Shelley Duvall, Ned Beatty, Henry Gibson, Scott Glenn, Jeff Goldblum, Michael Murphy, etc. Race with the Devil, Jack Starrett's cult horror road movie about couples on a road trip being chased by a satanic cult after accidentally witnessing a human sacrifice. It stars Peter Fonda, Warren Oates, and Loretta Swit. Rollerball, Norman Jewison's dystopian sci-fi film about a murderous future sport and its star players' defiance of the ruling class. It stars James Caan, John Houseman, Maud Adams, John Beck, and Moses Gunn. And The Wilby Conspiracy. Ralph Nelson's British adventure film, adapted from Peter Driscoll's novel of the same name, about an anti-apartheid activist on the run from the secret police in South Africa. It stars Sidney Poitier, Michael Caine, Nicol Williamson, and Prunella Guy, for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Paradise, which IMDb describes like so. In the Middle East in 1823, two teenagers seek refuge at an oasis, where they discover love and intimacy while staying one step ahead of the slaver who massacred their families. We leave you now with the trailer for Paradise.
It was another world and another time. A time when women were sold for a price. A world where beauty was something men killed for. It was here in this world that their eyes first met, and their lives would never be the same. He was the son of American missionaries.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord!
She was the daughter of an English governor. Together, they became the victims of one man's obsession.
The English girl will not be for sale, she's for me.
His name was David. Her name was Sarah. They were wanderers in a strange, beautiful wilderness, lost and alone in a private world called Paradise. David and Sarah were cut off from everything they loved, but they fell in love with everything they had. And as time passed, they grew to know themselves.
Please don't leave me, David. Don't go away.
They were all each other had left in the world. And as their bodies grew strong and beautiful, so did their love. But the peace of paradise was short-lived. He was obsessed with Sarah's beauty, and he would kill to have her.
You need to bathe and have fresh clothes. Then you'll be fit to come to me.
David and Sarah discovered for themselves, in this strange land called Paradise, you kill for the things you love. If only it could have been forever. Paradise. No two people have ever come so close.